This is Jed Disler, and welcome to The Piano Maven, your friendly podcast guide to piano recordings. You can subscribe to The Piano Maven by clicking on the link that I've provided in our program description notes. It's a link that takes you to my Substack page where you can subscribe to this podcast. And if you're a paid subscriber, you get such goodies as free downloads at the start of each month. And from time to time, we have Zoom meetings with fellow piano mavens. So it's well worth sponsoring us and contributing because it helps keep this podcast going. Although the Russian pianist Grigory Sokolov turned 75 a few months ago, it seems as though it was only not all that long ago when one could speak of him as a young pianist or youngish pianist. And we have to remember that he was all of 16 years old when he won the gold medal in the 1966 Tchaikovsky competition in Moscow. And very soon after his gold medal victory, Sokolov went into the recording studio with Nemi Yervi and the USSR Symphony Orchestra to record the first Tchaikovsky concerto and the second concerto by Camille Saint-Saëns. These recordings have had a number of compact disc incarnations. One was a 1997 release on the BMG label when BMG was licensing material from Russian Melodia. And so Volume 3 in a series called Nemi Yervi, the early recordings, consisted of the Tchaikovsky and Saint-Saëns concertos with the teenage Sokolov. And these concertos also came out in a 4-disc Sokolov collection on Melodia on CD. And curiously, Sokolov is credited, but not the conductor nor the orchestra. It's very strange. Anyway, I have the BMG version in my collection, and I had not heard it in a while. But I took it out again, and I really enjoyed listening to it. The sonics, I have to admit, are not quite state-of-the-art for 1966 or 67, whenever that was recorded, especially when you compare it to Western recordings. But it's certainly listenable, and the piano and orchestra balance is generally good, although sometimes the piano is a little too much out front, especially in the second movement of the Tchaikovsky concerto. But it's interesting to hear samples of Nemi Yervi when he was a young conductor, because even back then he was a really forthright, pedal-to-the-metal type of conductor, and he always was a superb accompanist. But the main focus of this release is the teenage Sokolov, and he certainly does not play like a teenager or sound remotely immature. The immense poise and polish of his keyboard workmanship is really that of a mature, world-class artist in these performances. I mean, there are times when he will broaden a phrase in the Tchaikovsky with a slightly mannered emphasis that's not all that subtle, but, all Russian pianists did that in the Tchaikovsky, and, he doesn't do it very often. It's interesting how Yervi sets a relatively brisk tempo at the Andantino's outset in the Tchaikovsky concerto, only to have Sokolov enter at a slightly slower pace. But the soloist and conductor quickly find common ground. And by the way, the flute soloist at the top of the movement is really out of tune. It's not very pleasant to listen to. But the brass solos don't have that kind of watery vibrato that you often got from Russian orchestras back in the day. But listen to Sokolov's super speedy tempo in the middle of the Andantino. Wow, I mean, it's just amazing, the absolute control and precision of his articulation and attack. It's just staggering. And in those final octaves in the last movement, his gradual slowing down toward the end of that sequence is so impeccably calibrated and proportioned, it's almost as if they are being conducted. Purely in terms of Sokolov's solo work, the Saint-Saëns Second Concerto is really quite dazzling technically, and his tempos really take off in the second and third movements, and you cannot deny his absolute poise. I used that word poise before, didn't I? Well, that's what it is. It's poise. And those balances in the chords have no splintering, no vagary. Everything is absolutely solid and in proportion and in balance. And the first movement kind of has a monumental, almost Brahmsian cast to it, although it certainly moves and it doesn't sound static, but I kind of miss the lightness and the transparency that you get from, say, the Ciccolini recording or Arthur Rubinstein, or even that really underrated recording with Howard Shelley conducting from the piano that I spoke about all the way back in our second episode, which was almost a year ago. My goodness. So you'll find more superficially charming editions of the Saint-Saëns Second Concerto on disc, but the unstinting focus and total authority of Sokolov's pianism as a teenager really, really impresses. He had it all, even back then. And of course, Nemi Järvi is no slouch. So check out these early Grigory Sokolov recordings of the Tchaikovsky First and Saint-Saëns Second Concertos. The sonics may not be state-of-the-art, but the piano playing most definitely is. This is Jed Disler, and you've been listening to The Piano Maven, your friendly podcast guide to piano recordings. I hope you will tune in for our next episode, and I look forward to being with you for that. Take good care.